So you know this song, most of you, you're old enough to know it, by Peter, Paul, and Mary, and by Pete Seeger originally. If I had a hammer, I'd hammer in the morning, I'd hammer in the evening, all over this land. I'd hammer out danger, I'd hammer out warning, I'd hammer out love between my brothers and my sisters all over this land. Ooh, if I had a bell, I'd ring it in the morning, I'd ring it in the evening, all over this land. I'd ring out danger, I'd ring out warning, I'd ring out love between my brothers and my sisters all over this land. Ooh, if I had a song, I'd sing it in the morning, I'd sing it in the evening, all over this land. I'd sing out danger, I'd sing out warning, I'd sing out love between my brothers and my sisters all over this land. Oh, now I got a hammer and I got a bell and I got a song to sing all over this land. It's the hammer of justice. We need justice. It's the bell of freedom. It's a song about love between my brothers and my sisters all over this land. It's the hammer of justice. It's a bell of freedom. It's a song about love between my brothers and my sisters all over this land. Yeah, pump it up a little bit. Going to hear a lot about election protection today, a lot about what's been done wrong, and some good stuff about what we can do to protect our democracy. Our guests are Mimi Kennedy and Harvey Wasserman and Greg Palast. And so I happen to know Mimi very well, and I've heard what she has to say, and it's incredibly good. So, with nothing more from me, here she is, the lady herself, Mary Claire Kennedy.
Thank you. I am going to read, I don't generally do this, from an article I've been working on for 2 months, because just the information I got together for this article was so difficult to research and find that you're going to find out why we're being chumped to some degree in the reporting of our elections. All right. Some of you may know this song from one of my favorite musicals. I got the horse right here. The 2016 primary track conditions. If you know Guys and Dolls, you're already singing the rest of this line. His name is Paul Revere, and there's a guy that says when the weather's clear, can do, etc. This man says so. This song conjures for me media campaign coverage of our elections. We don't get much about the issues. We get the horse race, entries, candidates, odds, poll numbers, stables, political parties, owners, donors, and trainers, campaign operatives. But we don't hear about something so important to horse races that Frank Lesser put it in the opening verse. When the weather's clear. That's the only time Paul Revere can do. If the track's mud, don't bet on him. So too, your favorite candidates. Lousy track conditions could do them in. And the condition of U.S. electoral track varies by state. Election law is a jealously guarded states' rights matter. Within our states, there are over 7,000 small voting jurisdictions that have some say in the election process. No wonder the media won't cover track conditions in a given race. They're too hard to find out. But not factoring them into the odds lets we, the people, be played for chumps. 4 variables determine a jurisdiction's electoral tract conditions: who can vote, who does vote, how the vote is cast, and how it's counted. Who can vote? The Constitution of the United States does not confer the right to vote on anyone. So ruled the Supreme Court in Minor versus Happersett in 1875, and it's still true. The best the federal government can do for its citizens' voting rights is to protect us from states that would deny that right for reasons deemed unconstitutional. In 1875, it was perfectly constitutional for the St. Louis Registrar to deny Mrs. Virginia Minor a vote. Amendments had to be passed, the 15th and 19th respectively, to protect male former slaves, then women, from state disenfranchisement. To this day, states shape the electorate as they can. In Virginia and 10 other states, for instance, felons lose their voting rights maybe forever, unless the governor restores them. Vermont and Maine let them vote in jail. The 1965 Voting Rights Act stopped abuses like poll tax and literacy tests that states used to disenfranchise voters disproportionately by race. But John Roberts' Supreme Court gutted the act, 2013, removing the requirement that such states submit new election law to the Justice Department for review. A raft of state laws requiring photo ID at the polls passed in that decision's wake, once again burdening poor minority voters along with students and the elderly. Some laws were overturned by state courts, others stand. The 2002 Help America Vote Act, an ostensible reform to solve problems in the Florida 2000 election that marred George W. Bush's occupation of the White House, created new obstacles with good intentions. Mandatory state voter rolls, our digital databases, vulnerable to glitch, hacking, and automatic purge. Voters purged by error or malfeasance can do nothing but vote provisionally at the polls when they find out. A vote that will be counted late, if at all. Who does vote? Those who jump the hurdles mentioned above, accidental or malicious roster purges, having and knowing the correct ID required at the polls, being motivated and knowledgeable enough to follow changes in polling places and requirements for absentee ballots, not being turned off by campaign lies, and not being deterred by long waits to vote that interfere with work hours and childcare. They will vote. Turnout in the U.S. is often dismal. How votes are cast. HAVA's, that's the Help America Vote Act, national standards included requirements for how votes can be cast. And they required expensive new voting equipment that states and counties had to acquire before 2006 or face federal lawsuits. There was no outcry from Republican defenders of states' rights and austere budgets. And Democrats embraced the promise that computer technology would aid voting in their underserved urban communities. It was assumed that computers would prove colorblind, unlike some local election officials. 2 brothers, Bob and Todd Urosevich, had computer voting equipment shovel ready to meet HAVA's mandates. Their companies, Diebold and ES&S, reaped most of HAVA's taxpayer billions. They sold DRE, direct record electronic computer voting machines, which allowed voters to cast votes on a screen and the votes to be counted inside the computer without paper. And for counties that wished to retain paper ballots, they sold optical scan equipment, computers that read and counted paper ballots much faster than the human eye. Other companies that sold computerized voting equipment were Sequoia, Hart Intercivic, and Unison. The company's computer code was trade secret. Okay, I feel like a friggin' nun, but I was getting distracted. Okay, the company's computer code was trade secret, readable only by its developers, licensed service contractors in every state and county, and election offices' IT staff. How the votes are counted. Computers count digitally. All digital counting programs are software, vulnerable to error and manipulation. Digital results with no paper ballots that can be read by human eye are completely unverifiable. But whether computer results must be audited in any way is up to the states. California, for instance, has audits. A percentage of votes in every county must be recounted by hand, and we have paper ballots to audit. Other states have no audits. Georgia and South Carolina, two important primary states, do not have an audit law. And there is nothing to audit if they did, since their elections take place entirely on DREs without a paper trail. Texas has audits, along with some paper ballots and paper trails, but so many paperless DRE counties that its audit law is meaningless for statewide verified results. Alabama has no audits, but paper ballots. The ballots could be used for verification, but were not, for instance, even in the suspicious loss of Governor Don Stiegelman's 2002 re-election due to a wee hour's shift of 6,000 electronic votes in one county that was blamed on a glitch. The ballots were impounded and never inspected. Verification is desirable in Alabama, which has shown bad faith with its electorate right now, including recently passing a photo ID law, then trying to close DMV offices where such ID is most easily obtained in 54 mostly African American counties. The Justice Department stopped the closures, but the photo ID law is still on the books, and an audit law is not. Track conditions now. Diebold changed its name to Premier after bribery convictions and other problems marred its image. Premier acquired ES&S, the other brother's company, then divested it due to antitrust lawsuit. Dominion, a Canadian company whose name does not inspire thoughts of democracy, bought Premier and Sequoia and now counts about half of America's votes. Hart Intercivic was in the news in 2012 for being part owned by a hedge fund in which the family of presidential candidate Mitt Romney had financial control. The Romneys assured the public that financial interest did not equal day-to-day operations, and the press backed off. Unison, which still counts many U.S. votes, is also a leading maker of racetrack betting machines and is owned now by Benjar, a Malaysian company which operates global real estate, resorts, and casinos. The condition of our U.S. electoral track seems not to concern even politicians, you accepted our present guests, who have to run on it. In 2006, I asked Senator Ben Cardin of Maryland if he knew how his voters voted, meaning their voting system, and hoping to offer him an election protection strategy. 63% Democratic, he said proudly. When I clarified, he admitted he'd voted absentee for so long he didn't know what his voters faced at the polls. Congressman John Lewis, the Selma civil rights hero, is very concerned. He offers a bill every House session, and PDA backs it, by the way, in our letter drops, to establish, among other reforms, a mandatory nationwide paper ballot. It never leaves committee. Senator Al Franken knows the value of paper ballots. though he never allowed election integrity people to come on his radio show and talk about election fraud when he was a host. Minnesota activists saved paper ballots against the push for electronic voting in their state, and when the Optiscan count returned Norm Coleman to his Senate seat in 2008, giving GOP control of both houses of Congress, Al demanded a recount. Human eyes on the paper ballots proved he'd won. Ron Barber of Arizona lost his House seat in 2014 by 161 votes in a bitter political climate. His predecessor, Gabby Giffords, had been shot by a constituent. A recount was conducted on the same Diebold Optiscanners that had counted the first time, though Arizona law mandates recounts be done by some independent method. Results didn't change. Arizona's audit law, they have one, requires each county to recount 3 to 5% of precincts by hand, depending on size. It's a percentage too low to catch problems in a margin as slim as Ron's. His race would have had to be entirely hand recounted to know voters' intent. Most election officials say that's too much to ask, even for democracy. Losing candidates, in fact, are shamed if they don't get over it and move on. But unverified elections are no longer about individual politicians and their party. It's we voters who are being betrayed, especially when strange, unverified results are blamed on our being fickle, stupid, apathetic, or lying to pollsters. We suffer leaders and policies the majority of us don't seem to want, and we get discouraged, wondering if this distorted version of our nation is true or the result of elections over which we've lost control. It's no longer paranoid to demand verification of election results. It's patriotic. War and peace are at stake, along with control of the world's mightiest military and weapons of mass destruction. The welfare of our people and future of our planet are at stake in even the smallest jurisdictions that affect the balance of power. We can no longer allow small-minded, short-sighted corruption to manipulate results with the facility that digital manipulation provides. Verification is deterrence. 8 officials in Clay County, Kentucky are serving hard time for election fraud. Some confessed, others were convicted. From 2002 to 2006, they colluded in, among other schemes, flipping electronic votes and teaching others how to do so. They the only ones? They happened before or since? This year's weird gubernatorial results in Kentucky nonetheless reported without question. The voters were blamed for the strangeness of popular Democratic Attorney General Jack Conway losing his governor bid by an overnight 14-point shift, and for 3 Democrats down ticket, each getting tens of thousands of more votes than Conway did at the top of the ticket. Yet Kentucky track is mud. No verifiable photo finish. Take a look. Kentucky counties mix paperless DRE machines. That would be your dark maroon, with Optiscanned paper ballots. That's mixed paper ballot, and DREs are in the orange sections. Looks like the most of the state, but when you start looking at where Lexington is and so forth, you're going to see that it's paperless DREs. State audit law, yay, requires a recount of ballots from 3 to 5% randomly selected precincts per county, but digital result counties can't be publicly verified, so statewide results unverifiable. Voting system vendors, Dominion, Diebold Premier Dominion, ES&S, Danaher, Hart InterCivic, and Microvote, which lost 3,800 votes in a single county in 2012. Non-photo ID is required at the polls. Felons lose right permanently unless restored by governor. That's the track conditions in Kentucky. They had a weird election. Rachel Maddow and all the rest of them was just like, oh, well, the other guy won. Nothing. We are being chumped big time, and this has got to stop. I'm going to show you some other maps that aren't in my talk, but I am going to post this article online with all the maps, all the photo ID or none at the polls, felon voting rights, all the information I just gave you for Kentucky, it is going to be on the polls for all the early primary states. Here is Georgia. All paperless voting. The same situation it was in 2002 when Max Cleland, Vietnam hero and a progressive, potential future progressive, also Sam Nunn's daughter, they all thought she had a chance. I sat here going, Georgia, why are they even talking about the polls for this woman? Why are they even running her? It's not going to happen, period. It's not going to happen. They don't have to prove a damn thing. Why would they let the Senate go to the Democrats with Mrs. Nunn, even if all the people in her state love her? South Carolina, but they had a debate. They're so involved politically. South Carolina, the new South, it's all going so well. When you hear who won the primary in South Carolina, remember this map. You betcha, it is her firewall. Okay, Texas. Texas is a little checkerboard, isn't it? And when you compare it, as I do in my article, to where the cities are, Austin, San Antonio, you can start drawing some conclusions about who gets paper ballot elections and who doesn't, and you'll find some conclusions. But statewide, in other words, who became senator, who voted for the president, unverifiable completely at the moment. Arkansas, the little yellow is a mixed paper ballot and DREs with a VVPAT. Well, that's nice. One county has some paper ballots. Kind of a checkerboard. You could actually do some deterrence there, and I'm going to suggest it when I finish this in 1 second. Good morning, Tennessee. That's where my relatives live, in Chattanooga, where the Pioneer Bank is, which holds all the servers for Karl Rove's RNC computer that lost all of his emails, even though he was brought to a congressional committee. He is still in contempt of Congress because he wouldn't go talk about how all his emails were lost off the RNC computer that he kept in the White House, politicizing completely his office in the White House. Yes, and that's where they stole Kerry's votes. That's where the Secretary of State of Ohio's website shifted in the middle of the night at the servers in Tennessee. And you know what's interesting? There's one county with paper ballots. It's Chattanooga's. Do you think maybe they know something in Chattanooga about the capacity to swing an election, and maybe the city fathers there wanted paper ballots? This is Virginia. Progressive Democrats, People Demanding Action, Andrea Miller, she's now executive director of our 501c4. African American, lived in Virginia a long time. She says that the election boards are all Republicans, and Democrats are assigned to sign up Democrat so that they can serve on the election board. It's a gentleman's agreement. Things pass back and forth in Virginia. Okay, now I'm going to say a little bit about what you can do, and then this is going to be over. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to just go to the end because I don't want to leave you in despair. I will be posting this. Okay. It's all so much fun. Okay. Sorry to be looking through this, but let's go on to say, well, I have it with Kentuckians, for instance, can start improving their elections by insisting on citizens' right to observe manual audits and recounts in counties where there are paper ballots. They must insist on an end to paperless voting, so their audit law is enforceable and a return to paper ballots. For now, they can demand, as public record, the poll tapes from every precinct's DRE voting machines. Each machine produces a tape with the results of all votes cast on that machine in every race at the end of the night. These results can be added together for precinct results and compared to precinct results posted on the Secretary of State's website. It is minimal deterrence to fraud, but even access to these tapes has been denied to activists on the basis of trade secrecy and violating voter anonymity. Neither reason is accurate, and if the tapes are the only public record of the vote, citizens have a right to see them. File a request. If it's denied, ask why and publicize the answer. Right now, one of the biggest things we can do, talk to our registrar, ask for these things. When we get the answer, no, oh, why? And go right to a blogger, to the newspaper, to our websites. Let's go on to see track conditions. I just did that in early primary states. Meanwhile, find out, of course, California with paper ballots, but this is for your relatives and your friends elsewhere, and I will post this. Find out your own state's laws and systems at verifiedvoting.org. Visit Democracy Movement, U.S. Citizen Toolkit, and blackboxvoting.org. You'll have all this in the article. For actions you can take based on the equipment used in your voting jurisdiction, become a poll worker to see how the equipment is used. What are the vulnerabilities for the voters casting a vote and for the count? When machines fail, who shows up to service them? Do a lot of voters have to vote provisionally for any reason? Could the reason be easily corrected before the next election? Visit your county election office, preferably with a group, and ask for a tour. Ask to observe the count on election night and the absentee and provisional count in the days after. If told you're obstructing well-run elections, take heart. You and your election officials are on common ground. Well-run elections require public transparency to deter crime. Ask about chains of custody at the office and about equipment and ballots, including absentees, before mailing and after coming back. If this information is denied, ask why. Publicize the answer. Practice hand counting paper ballots. I have some templates. See me after. Run your own workshop by making sample ballots from an online template, or ask your county for a sample test ballot. Copy a dozen, vote those randomly, copy those voted dozen to a precinct batch of 300 and follow the instructions here. I give the website. You're not a Luddite. You're getting ready for public service that will save democracy. Thank you.